Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reisch. This is Crime Talk, and specifically, this is our Tuesday night live. Thank you for joining us. We are streaming on both YouTube and Facebook. Thank you, everyone, for being here. For those of you who are here for maybe the first time, my name is Scott Reisch. I'm a practicing attorney here in the state of Colorado. Been an attorney now for 26 years, practiced primarily criminal defense. We started this channel a couple of years ago simply for the fact that we were so frustrated by what we saw on the evening news, where people were basically just stating something. They had no idea what it meant, how it fit into the big picture of the legal system, and most of the people didn't understand the process at all. So we started this channel with an desire, a hope to hopefully educate people on the law, maybe bring a little humor with it occasionally, along with maybe a little dry sarcasm. We try to put up a show on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, with a recap on Saturday. And we even try to do that when I'm in trial. It's been very easy for the last year because normally I do a trial a month on average. And last year, in the entire year of 2020, in the COVID days, I did 2 trials all year. And I start one next week, and it'll be the first one in a while. And so we're trying to plan for next week because I want to hopefully be able to bring you content, but it may be a little difficult if I'm in court from 8:30 until 5 every day. So, and I probably will be doing trial prep in the evening. So if there's something that you would like me to talk about that I can prepare for you all next week, now is the time to let me know. If there's a particular area of the law you would like me to try to explain, if there's a particular case that you would like me to discuss, please let me know. But it doesn't mean that we won't be here. We will still be here, and check their community page, our Instagram page. We'll be putting up content throughout the week. You may just not get me, but like all things in the world of litigation, you have no idea what's going to happen until you get there. I've shown up completely ready to go for trials, and it's been dismissed. I've had trials that were supposed to last 3 days, maybe a week, and they wound up going 2 weeks. It is unknown. And now we are in the phase of that final trial preparation, which is the worst part of all of any kind of a trial, other than maybe waiting for the jury or when they announce they've reached a verdict. Then your stomach just sinks. But this is the part that is exhausting. And that is, simply preparing, going back over everything again. You know your case. You're double, you're triple checking because you want to make sure you get it right, because facts are important. Facts are correct, and that's what we try to do here. We try to get it correct. We try to be as honest as we can. So on our Tuesday night live program, we want to hear what you want to talk about, because basically 5 days a week, you get to hear about what I want to talk about, what I think is interesting. So basically, we turn the show over to our subscribers, our Crime Talk family, our Crime Talk community that truly loves true crime, who truly loves the law. And we turn it over to you. So let us know. Put it over there in the chat. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. And we'll try. And we're not saying you have to do so, but if you do a super chat, it does highlight it here in the screen, which makes it a little easier for me to spot it and try to answer it. We'll certainly do that. It can be about anything in the law, pretty much anything. I don't think I've ever not answered a question, assuming that I have seen it. And then immediately following this show, we have our Patreon live show where our Patreon members, we all get together. We have another little chat with a little twist, is that we get to have subscribers, our Patreon members call in. We give you a phone number. It's this kind of fancy system where you can call. We can have, I think, up to 10 people on the line at any given time. Haven't had that many that we needed that yet, but that was the best package we could get for the money. So please call in and we can talk about things. And tonight we have a new game that we're going to partake in on the Patreon Live. It's our dumb criminal game. We're going to answer questions, whether it's true or false, whether these things actually did in fact happen. We always have the magic 8-ball. And like I said, we have the call in as well. What amazes me about both this hour and the next hour is how quickly they both go by. It really, really does go by. Now, cases that you all may want to talk about. Obviously, we have the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell case. We had a couple of little hearings last week. Always talk about that. We still have the West twin, or not twins, but the young West boys are still missing. Nothing's been found there as it relates to young boys, any real new evidence, at least what the police are talking about. And then, of course, we have down here in Colorado, just down the road, about an hour and a half from where we are, in lovely Colorado Springs. Now, most people don't realize this. Colorado Springs is actually, if not there, I think it's the first or second largest city in the state of Colorado. Denver is, kind of sandwiched around it. Then you got, Aurora, and then you got Colorado Springs. But I think Aurora's there. And as far as court systems go, Colorado Springs, I think, handles more cases than just about anywhere. It's a very, very busy jurisdiction down there. Well, they have the Letitia Stout case. Letitia Stout says, hey, I want a new attorney. Okay. Judge says no conflict. Just because you don't like your attorneys isn't a conflict when you have court-appointed counsel. Just because they did what they thought was right, which was to raise the issue of competency, not once but twice, is not a basis for a conflict. So now it's set for an Arguello hearing where Miss Letitia Stout is going to have to decide whether she wants to represent herself or whether she's going to try and get along with her public defenders. I certainly hope that she tries to get along with her public defenders. There's nothing more painful than trying to watch a pro se defendant represent themselves. It's painful. It's not fun to watch. You would think, oh, this is going to be no. You think, oh, this could be funny to see how this goes. No, it's not. It's normally what it's equivalent to is the old thing of fishing or shooting fish in a barrel. It's not a fair fight. The judge isn't going to help her out. She's held to the same standards. So she's held to the same standards as a licensed practicing attorney, assuming that she is familiar with the rules of evidence. She is familiar with the legal system, the law, the rules of criminal procedure, all those types of things that an attorney is supposed to know. Now, there's lots of attorneys that maybe don't do that because that's not what they do, but at least they've had the benefit of somewhat of going to law school. Being in custody and maybe getting out an hour or two a day, going to the law library, reading, that's one of the scariest things your client can tell you. Hey, I've been going to the law library and I found some case law that I would like to have you take a look at. You're like, okay, great. Because, every now and then clients come up with some good stuff. Like, okay, wasn't aware of that. But the reality of it is usually they hand you some case law from New York, and you understand you're in Colorado, from 1964. So it's not relevant to your jurisdiction. It's usually old and outdated, but they think it is going to solve the case. And they want you to file that magic motion to dismiss. And I'm like, really? And what is the basis for the motion to dismiss? Well, lack of evidence. Well, it's a very low standard to start a case, and you try to explain to them the whole process and go over and explain over and over again, but they've been to the law library and they know, and why are you just not filing the motion to make this case go away? It's very similar to bond reduction arguments that attorneys hear often. Yeah, so-and-so, the client would like to have a bond reduction. Okay. Well, we've had our bond reduction hearing. What has changed other than the mere passage of time? That's right, nothing. Nothing has changed other than somebody's been sitting in custody a little longer. That is not a basis to relitigate a bond reduction motion. But once again, somebody's gone to the law library. They just want you to ask, why are you not doing this? You're not representing me well enough. Why are you choosing to do this? Well, because there's no legal basis in law and fact for me to do this, and I'm not going to ruin my credibility filing motions. I can say, Judge, I'm simply filing this to appease the client, and the judge is going to know exactly what's taking place, and he will then shoot it down. It's just so frustrating. And, and I get it. People have a constitutional right to represent themselves, and attorneys obviously need to communicate with their clients and explain what's going on. But just because the client doesn't want to understand or doesn't want to listen to reality doesn't mean that we get to file motions at their whim. There's nothing more frustrating than that. And you just think, what do you need me for? So we can always talk about people representing themselves pro se. So let's start here. Yes, Brenda, remember, give those 2 thumbs up. Appreciate that. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. We would appreciate We'd appreciate you doing that. Big Zebra, yes, Tiger Woods are well wishes to Tiger Woods. Obviously, Tiger Woods has had some issues over the years, but my son still thinks he is no one I think would anyone deny he's one of the greatest golfers of all time. Sounds like today he was in that terrible car accident. Looks like it was one car accident, probably just not familiar with the area and drove off. Apparently they've looked for drugs and alcohol and there were none. So no criminal aspect of that. I guess they could charge somebody with maybe a reckless driving, but I'm not really sure what good would really come from that. Sometimes accidents happen and it doesn't mean that it rises to the level of criminal conduct. See that all the time. Maybe if a family complains enough, the district attorney will be like, fine, I'll just file the case. Maybe they'll go away. That's frustrating too. So everyone that's joined us, thank you. We also, let's see if I can see this here. Catherine, our super chat. How do you collect your dumb criminals of the week cases? Are these cases floating around in the legal network? Well, we have a vast resource pool of cases. You never know where they're going to come from, although it would seem as though they seem to all come from Florida. I'm not sure why. Is there something in the water in Florida? Because every time I've been to Florida, the people have always seemed so nice. Very, very nice, very helpful. I didn't see a whole lot of dumb criminal people walking around. I was very surprised, but it seems like there's a lot of criminal activity in Florida for sure. So, what can you do? What can you do? CrimeTalk is Big Zebra. CrimeTalk is taped before a live studio audience. Very true. We are working completely without any script, any material as it relates to what we're going to say. Most of it comes from questions that come up, and I appreciate everyone being here. Wow, that's so nice. Hello from Woodstock, Georgia, Denise. Hope everyone's staying healthy. Now, I gave it to us, Scott. We all love to listen. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really try to, obviously, every day we try to bring you something. We try to hopefully be something that's fun, something that we can help explain the legal system. I mean, there's one thing that I love as being an attorney is if you read the Constitution. And you'd be shocked, I think, if there was a show of hands, right? Who here as a Crime Talk subscriber, follower here this evening, has read the Constitution from beginning to end? I would bet most of them have. Right? Show of hands, right? Absolutely. Because it's so important. I mean, the fundamentals of criminal law begin at the Constitution. Think about it. Fourth Amendment, right to be your place, your person, your papers to be free from not to be subject to unreasonable searches and seizures. That's pretty important. The Fifth Amendment, right to due process. That's huge, is it not? I mean, that's what separates us from, countries where you don't get it, where the decision's already made before it even starts. Right against self-incrimination. I mean, think about it. It's a fundamental right that we have here, and it carries with you from the time somebody says, hey, I'm accusing you of something. You say, okay, not talking, all the way through trial, because the government always has that burden of proof. The defense doesn't have to prove themselves innocent. And if the state could call you as a witness, the burden really kind of then shifts to you to prove yourself innocent. So we say you can't do that. In fact, we go one step greater than that and say, we give a jury instruction that says you cannot consider the defendant's silence against them in any way whatsoever. You have to judge the case based upon the evidence presented or the lack thereof as to whether the state, the government, has proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Then you have the Sixth Amendment, right? The right to counsel. How important is that? And understand, it wasn't until, I think it was 1961, until the Gideon v. Wainwright decision. Mr. Gideon, sitting in a jail in Florida, saying, hey, I want an attorney. I'm not really experienced an attorney. He writes a petition. It goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. And they say, yes, if your liberty is in peril, being subject to be taken away, you have a right to counsel. And states, if they can't afford an attorney and they're in custody, you're going to have to get them one. So not that long ago, the court didn't have to give you an attorney. But Sixth Amendment right to counsel. You can always have a counsel if you could afford one. But think of all the people that can't afford an attorney. Let's say you get accused of a crime and you go to the attorney and says, man, I need $5,000, $7,500, $10,000. Can most people just simply say, okay, here, let me write a check. Here's my credit card. A lot of people can't do that. Most people don't have their, criminal defense attorney rainy day fund. Usually it's called, parents and grandparents that help out with that. So, it's the Constitution is. I urge everyone to go read it. It's very simple. The words have plain, simple meaning, effect, and meanings, and people always try to change it. You have to read it as for what it says, just like you would read any documents that you sign today. The documents, they have the words mean simple things, plain meaning of the words. You have to take it at that. You don't say, well, that's not really what it means. And, well, that contract was written many, many, many years ago, and the meaning has changed. No, you have to review it at the time that the people signed the document. What was the meaning at the time? Just like if you had a land deal and somebody said, no, I'm going to take the deal. I'm on your land. That's changed. That whole boundary thing is so old and outdated. I want to move it over a little bit because, frankly, I deserve it. It's nice. I'm just going to use it and I'm going to take it. Say, no, this is my property and this is what the contract says. This is what I own. Why would people dispute that? You'd want to look at the time, what was the meaning at the time of the signing of the contract? Same thing with the Constitution. If you don't like the Constitution, you change it. There's a method, there's a mechanism to do that. You don't just have the courts do it. And, don't even get me started on courts creating their own rules, okay? We have a speedy trial statute here, and it's going to be probably the death of me because in Colorado, when you say not guilty, the state has 6 months from that date. And when this whole COVID thing started, you have a constitutional speedy trial right? You have constitutional implications to a speedy trial, a public trial. And then COVID hit. And the legislature could have gone and fixed the speedy trial statute when they were in session, when they had a special session. They could have called a special session. They're now in session. And have they ever thought that it was necessary to, hey, think we can change it? No, we're not going to do that. Why? Because the courts created a rule. And they say, hey, if we can't assemble a jury because of a public health pandemic, we're just going to declare mistrial. And we'll just keep declaring mistrials until we get back to normal. In the meantime, clients sit there in custody, waiting. And like I said, the court cannot just create a rule to trump a statutory right because the legislature is too lazy or doesn't care, or I think you have to say by their inaction, they don't want to change it. But they don't do that. Of course, we can't dismiss cases. If we dismiss cases, we're going to look like the bad guys. Instead of saying, this is the law, maybe the legislature should go fix it. They won't do that. Okay? So anyway, go read the Constitution. It's not that long. We'll do it after the program. If you're a Patreon, do it after the Patreon show. But it's very short, all right? And it's an amazing document, but it's the fundamental foundation of all criminal law here. The light is a bit odd. It makes Mr. Reisch's hair look a bit green. I don't know. Could be the monitor because Frank says it looks just fine where he is. And I certainly don't have green hair. Let's see. Can we watch the trial next week? I don't know. So I don't think it's going to be televised. Today in Texas, it's almost 78 degrees. It's like it didn't happen. Yeah, we were frozen here a couple weeks ago, and it was like 60 degrees today. God bless it. Are there any trials on any of your trials on YouTube? We have a video that we put up. It was actually, it's been a long time. I can't believe it's been that long. It's been like 17 years ago. But some people say I haven't aged a bit. And it was a child abuse resulting in a death case that we tried. And ABC News actually covered it. And it showed the jury deliberations. They got all kinds of special approval from the Colorado Supreme Court to do it. It's in one of the videos below. I can't remember what it's called, but it is. It's in our video collection. I know there's a lot because we put a video up just about every day. We should probably group those a little bit more, but we'll have to see. Let's see. Just the facts. Any sub here unjustified? Another sub here unjustified. Okay. Anything new on the twins? I haven't heard. Well, they're not twins. They're 3 and 4. But Nancy has. Let's see if this is the question we already answered. Nancy gave us a super chat. Thank you, but I don't see a question there, Nancy. Hey, Scott, preparing for law school, and I'm curious, what of one of your most creative defenses you've ever seen used that worked? Ooh. Well, Christine, that's an interesting question because there's not a lot of, you can call them different things. You can present different witnesses as it relates to various things. But generally, in criminal law, it's pretty simple. They have to prove that it was you, the defendant, right? We've talked about this before. Because it's so important, identification is the key issue in any criminal trial because we want to make sure we have the right person, right? We don't want to go around convicting innocent people of crimes that they didn't commit. And our criminal justice system is built on the notion that it's better for 100 guilty men to go free than to convict one innocent man. Now, we all know that's happened. We see lots of people being released from prison where they've served years, if not multiple decades in custody for crimes they didn't commit. And what is the major cause of a lot of those false conviction type of cases? Identification. What has helped to perhaps slow that down a little bit? DNA. A lot of these cases where people are released, the technology's there. They test the DNA and say, oh my gosh, it couldn't have been this guy. It's not his DNA. That's significant. So really you have, general denial. I didn't do it. Wasn't me. Even if you think about an alibi. Hey, I didn't do it. I was over here. Couldn't have been me. Then you have, affirmative defenses, which is, yeah, I did it. And you're basically admitting what the crime is charged as an affirmative defense. Yeah, I did exactly what they're saying, but I have a defense. I was excused under the law because it was self-defense. I was defending myself. I was defending another person. There's kind of a choice of evils. Like, yeah, I did it. I had to drive away. But the reason I did that was because my friend got beaten up so bad, he was going to die. So I had no choice but to drive him in the car. And I was intoxicated. I had too many to drink. I admit it. But I got him there safely, right? So it really just depends. A lot of it, Christine, is, facts. You got to go investigate the facts. And, it's tough when clients don't have the resources to do it. But most of the time you have to say, hey, we're going to have to hire, these are my fees. This is what you got to pay me. And, sometimes it could be unlimited bottomless pit, depending on the case, depending on how many things you got to go down. But most cases usually come down to who can find the better facts. Most cases don't turn on the law. You have to remember, most of the law is written in favor of the prosecution. Most of the cases are written in favor of the prosecution. Most judges will find a way to rule for the prosecution. So you have to be able to find better facts. How do you find better facts? Well, you go investigate. You go walk the crime scene. You get a feel for it. Because most of the time, unless it's probably a homicide case, most district attorneys are not going to go walk the crime scene. But if you can, you already have an advantage. You may be able to have some little nuanced question that you can ask a witness and get a little piece of evidence out of them because you were there, okay? And even if you think somebody has been interviewed by the police, go out and re-interview them again. You take your investigator, say, hey, we're here for the defense. You never ever lie about who you're with. You tell people straight up, hey, I'm a defense attorney. I'm here for this guy. Do you remember the incident of this night? Yep. Hey, tell me about it. All right. You've got their statement. You've read it. You're saying, is there anything that you didn't tell them that night? Maybe it's come to you. You didn't think about it. Oh yeah. There's one little thing. Oh really? Okay. Tell me more. And, I think I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but when you go knock on somebody's door, you'd be surprised how many people will invite you in to talk with them. Even if they are hostile or what you would originally think would be hostile, they will talk to you. People usually are generally very helpful. They want to tell their story. And frankly, being a witness in a case is normally more exciting than most people ever have in their life. So they're very intrigued by it. They want to be a part of it. And I've gone in and was like, man, I'm not going to talk with you. And, by the end of it, we've stayed for hours, had dinner with them, and just chatting up a storm. I remember once my investigator and I, we hopped into CrimeTalk 1. We went to look for a witness, flew down early in the morning. They were kind of in witness protection kind of thing. So we just showed up, found them, talked to us for hours. Had another witness. We flew out, talked to them, knocked on their door about 8:30 in the morning in California. And they were like, you mean you all came out here just to talk to me? Yep. And they'll talk to you. We once had to fly, my investigator and I, we flew to Hawaii. That's where the key witness had relocated. It was terrible. I had to go to Hawaii. And unbelievable, asked, hey, if I was looking for a guy that was maybe involved in the kind of the drug underculture, where would I find him? Oh, you need to go out to these slips out here. And sure enough, we knocked on a couple of hatches and people said, oh yeah, he's over there. He's over there. Found him, spent hours with the guy, talked to us. Now, in that particular case, it was like, called the client back. Yeah, this guy's very credible. They're paying for his trip. We need to take that deal now. But that was a very important fact that we needed to learn, right? Their credibility, the witness's credibility. Sometimes you can't get that by not talking to the witness. And he could have not talked to us, but he did. And that's what we always tell witnesses when we go talk with them is, I don't want you to tell me what you think I want to hear. I want to know the truth so that I can best advise my client. Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just tell me the truth. So let's see. Let me see here. A couple of questions. Nope, still haven't found the two little missing West boys in California. Oh, Letitia Stauch. Her hearing, is it? Yeah, I guess it is. I thought it was Friday, but I'll have to double check that. We cannot broadcast the video WebEx stuff here. It's unfortunate, but I can't. It's like, saying, hey, I want to join in on a Zoom call and put it out there for the whole world to do. It's different in some places where they have their own, YouTube account, things like that. Or they've said you can have permission to televise it. So it's a little different here, but we'll take a look at that. We'll also confirm the date. I'm a sheep. Just curious why Tammy Daybell autopsy is still not released. I thought they had talked to the family members by now. You would think so, right? And you would think that if the one thing in the investigation that the prosecution was waiting for would have been the autopsy. They have it. So why not charge them if there's going to be charges? If there's not going to be charges, I think most people would agree the right and fair thing to do is to let them know the no charges will be filed. I guess the district attorney can say, well, we're still investigating. We're going to hold the case open for a while, which, make a decision. Make a decision. We're considering this case closed unless there's some new evidence that comes about. It doesn't mean you can't release it. I would think that if the prosecutors can prove and show that something was not a natural cause of death, that they would move to do that right away. Would it potentially prejudice Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell during their trials now? Yes, it potentially could, an allegation of a new case, but that evidence would never come in to trial. The biggest thing is just do, how do you, do it? You should just be honest. If you got enough evidence, charge it, right? Nothing more frustrating than if you have a case where basically the police say, can't prove a crime, can't see anything wrong. Months go by, nothing's changed. Everybody's cooperating, nothing's changed. Then one day, oh yeah, we're going to charge a case. Really? Why? What changed? Well, we can't really say, we're getting around to it. Maybe some, they'll tell you kind of off the record, yeah, the family pressure. They feel like we have to, well, you know what? Be a freaking man or a woman or a prosecutor and do justice, which is your job. Tell the family there's not enough to charge somebody, where somebody's liberty is at stake. It's going to ruin their life, their reputation, send them to prison potentially. Have enough guts to do that. DAs have an awesome responsibility. They have a lot of power, and it shouldn't be abused in any way whatsoever. Okay, Michael Ostol from New Zealand. Thanks for watching from way down under, right? Or is that Australia? New Zealand. You guys are way down there. All right. Michael, question. Do you agree with the death penalty? Good question. Where's my Constitution? Well, let's answer the legal question. Do you have my Constitution? Is that the one back on your desk? The Constitution of the United States, Fifth Amendment, states that the government shall not take your life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Now, at one point, the death penalty was abolished because the Supreme Court said that it violated a defendant's Eighth Amendment right against cruel and unusual punishment. That case law basically was abolished, went away, and it remains. It's up to the states whether they want to have their own death penalty law. The federal system still has a death penalty statute. It's in place. A president, a governor, a district attorney can certainly say, oh, we're not going to charge cases as death penalty cases, but it's the law. It's there. And as I've said many, many times before, when it comes to anything in the law, attorneys have to be realists. I've only had one case that started out as a death penalty case, and we spent a ton of time preparing mitigation, and the district attorney called me, and this was, 5.5 years ago, but he called me literally like a day or two after Christmas. It's like, hey, Scott, we're not going to go death on your case. I go, that's great, but we spent a lot of time out and interviewed people and actually did video interviews with people. We had a videographer at the time that we had hired, traveled all over the country with us, talking to these people, and really told our client's story as to why, maybe, and it's no justification for what he was ultimately convicted of, but it helps explain why and how he got there. And the district attorney said, hey, that was the first time anyone has ever used a video presentation to present mitigation like that. And it was extremely helpful. And, my client's brother basically made a great statement. He was, just a super intelligent guy, articulate. It's just a great, great guy. And he's like, hey, my brother never had a chance. It was like we were in two different worlds that we were growing up in. And so we had to deal with that. So the reality of it is the death penalty. It exists. You can't ignore it. I've had cases where they've said, hey, we're thinking about going death. We're going to make a decision. We're going to go death or not. So you start doing the mitigation. There's some cases that you say, hey, if you don't go death, my guy or gal will plead guilty. So looking at it from both sides, if you're a prosecutor, you want that tool. You want that statute, that potential penalty in your little kit bag that you can pull out for the worst of the worst cases. And I think that's what it's designed for. I think most people will say that. And, from a defense perspective, there's lots of things you can say, morally, it's cruel and unusual punishment. We're better than this. We're a civilized nation. How could we do this? But once again, you got to go back to the Constitution. And at the time, they say you can take your life, liberty, or property, right? You can't take it unless you're given due process of law. So there it is. You read the document at the time it was written. Do you think back when the founding fathers wrote that document that they were okay with the death penalty? Sure. Hell, I think in some states you can still do the firing squad. It used to be electrocution, gas chambers, all those types of things. And now, for the most part, it's lethal injection. And I can't remember the case off the top of my head, but it was a case down in Mississippi where the guy said, hey, I may suffer some pain here because of this little cocktail that you are assembling to put me to sleep forever. And the United States Supreme Court said, wow, obviously, you're entitled to, the execution that is the least amount of pain possible. We're not going to torture you, but you're not entitled to a painless death. And, prosecutors, victims would say, hey, that sounds fine with me. But, we are hopefully a little better civilized than that. We don't go around torturing people, just like we don't go beating people up. So the death penalty, I'll be honest with you. If somebody did terrible things to my family and loved ones, would it be off? Would you want that off the table? I probably want it as a bargaining chip, like any prosecutor would. If somebody's doing it to, my client, we're going to oppose it like we would with any client. I guess the real question is, it really doesn't matter personally what I believe as it relates to the death penalty, because it's the law. It's the law. Here in Colorado, we don't have a death penalty anymore. For lack of a better term, the legislature repealed it. Before that, the two previous governors, one who's now a senator, Hickenlooper, and we'll reserve comments on him. First, he said he was for it. Then he said he was against it. Then he wasn't going to do it. And I think a lot of people that voted for him said, hey, I've kind of voted for you because of that, because there were a lot of bad guys on death row. And then he said he wasn't going to do it. So, I'm just a realist. Like I said, we don't have it here. The federal system has it. It gets used quite a bit as far as in the federal system. But even if you get it, it takes 30 years to go through the process to do it. And I'm saying 30 years. There are cases that are less. There's some where the defendants are like, bring it on. Let's do it. Timothy McVeigh is the name that comes to mind. Like, stop the appeals. Let's do this thing. You got to kind of, have to admire that. Nothing better than a client that's just like, judge at sentencing, bring it on. Bring it on. I think that's really good. You got to respect clients like that. Yes, SSS. I think I misspoke earlier. I said the twins are not twins. They're 3 and 4 years old. And I think a couple people have said that. I've tried to correct that. But yes, you are right, which is the great thing about having subscribers. If you state a fact incorrectly, they'll let you know. If you mispronounce a word, they'll let you know. Will Vance. The more I read the books about Chris Watts, CW, I'm assuming Chris Watts, the more I see how the case was over fantasized. I've seen a lot of cases where husbands have done the same thing. There are lots of cases out there where husbands have done terrible things similar to what Chris Watts did to his family. I think the thing that was so interesting in the Chris Watts case is that you really got to know the victim in this particular case, because there were so many Facebook live streams that she had done for her work. There was so much you could see people's personalities. Normally you hear about, a guy did terrible things to the family and kids, and that's it. You don't get to go and look and say, oh my gosh, this is what she was like. This is what, she was doing. Then you throw in the extra woman, it certainly gets, Karen. All right, we're not getting political, but I'll answer this question because I think it can be answered non-politically. Scott. President Biden, while on Letterman in 2007, stated he was 21. He illegally entered the Capitol building and sat in the high office chair. He said he was arrested. What would that charge be? Normally trespassing. It'd be the same thing that most of the people that were Capitol rioters are being charged with, which is trespassing. If they could prove that they did something, they could be charged with criminal mischief as well. Criminal mischief is the damaging of property. But let me just give you one thing. Can I see a show of hands, everyone out there who watched today's video that we put up? Right? Show of hands. That's what I thought. Just about every one of you. Did anybody think that that video was over the top? There was a video that we didn't even put in. We talked about the wife of a guy who's serving his sentence down in ADX. And we talked about some parents who did the responsible thing. They bought a toy from a thrift store and they found a bunch of pills in it. YouTube said, you are violating our advertising policies. You are promoting recreational drug use there, Mr. Reich. Don't go there. We'll give you another strike and shut you down. Swear to God. And I get it. YouTube is a private company. They can create all the rules they want. But somewhere at YouTube has to have some common sense. Please tell me that there is someone at YouTube that has some common sense. Has anyone ever tried to get in touch with someone at YouTube? If you have, good luck. We've been putting up videos for 2.5 years, and I have never, ever, ever been able to speak with an actual person at YouTube. Not a one. And I get it. They have computers to do everything. Hey, if I could automate everything and have computers do it, it'd be great. Oh, made a little mistake. Fine, I'll double check that. Ooh, yeah, I don't know. So I do not know. I would love to know who the person was at YouTube that said what Scott put up in his content today was so over the top. It was the most mellow video we have done, not only this week, but in months. It is a unbelievable thing. We got, a community strike when we put a video up. We put a video up that you could watch on the internet. You could probably even see it on a few newscasts that say, we're going to warn you, this is graphic. And they would play it. But we do it, we're told to take it down. That's why we've had to put more stuff up on Patreon so you can see the video, because YouTube, in their little nanny state world, thinks that you all are too sensitive and cannot handle what really goes on in the world. If anyone thinks that everybody lives in a nice, safe, warm little world where you're not at danger, I don't know what bubble you think you are living in, okay? The streets out there are dangerous. I'm telling you, from a criminal defense attorney's perspective, if you knew the amount of crime that truly took place, you would be absolutely horrified. You would not come out of your homes. You would not want to leave. It is so random how people can be the victim of crime. I can tell you, my next door neighbor goes out when it was 2 below zero. He and his, kid were going to be leaving. They go outside the front, start the car up, let it run. Literally. Not in the house for more than 2 minutes. His car gets stolen. And I think that we, live in a nice neighborhood. But fortunately, I was able to go to my high resolution security system that I had installed because I had my garage burglarized. And yes, it was only a couple of expensive bikes, but it still just pisses you off. And I don't care if you're a criminal defense attorney or whatever. That was my bike. It was my hard-earned money that was used to buy the bike. And for somebody to just come and take your stuff pisses you off. But when somebody comes into your house and takes your stuff, that really pisses me off. That's your home. That's where you're supposed to be safe. That's why there's doors on the garage. There's locks on the garage because you don't want people coming in and sitting down and taking your stuff. And it happens all the time. And we put up the stuff the other day about a home invasion. We had to put it up on Patreon because it would be too sensitive for you all. You people, according to you subscribers, according to YouTube, can't handle the truth. That's what it amounts to. You cannot handle the truth that goes on in the world. I don't know what they want you to think, that everything's fine, everything's safe. I'm telling you, I've had cases where people have been in custody and been accused of doing terrible things to them over ramen noodle soup, a cup of ramen noodle soup. You know, people almost died over a cup of ramen noodle soup. If they're willing to do that, where everything is recorded inside, you're in prison, for God's sakes. Do you think they would have any problem doing that to you? They won't. And I'm telling you. And I like to see the good in everybody. I think I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I really am. I like to, my glass is usually half full. It really is. Some days it gets close to being right about 50%. But for the most part, my glass is half full. And you want to see the good in people and understand that everybody's got a story. But just because you've had, kind of crummy situation doesn't necessarily mean you get to take other people's stuff. And it doesn't mean you get to harm other people. There's laws against that. And I'm telling you, a big group hug isn't going to solve the problem. Okay? That's coming to you from a criminal defense attorney. Because I guarantee you, most of the people that are charged there will rationalize and justify what they did. It's not their fault. Well, it really wasn't that bad. Why do they want to send me to prison? Because you took their stuff, or you harmed somebody, or you did even worse to them, right? It's all right. That's my rant. YouTube, let the people know. Truth is good. Censorship is bad of any kind. But we seem to be living in a censorship world, and that's the thing that I've always loved about being a criminal defense attorney. I was the guy that got to talk about the elephant in the room. The question had to be asked, and nobody wanted to do it. Everyone wanted to avoid it because it could be too insensitive. We can't offend anybody. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I'm trying to get to the truth. Let's ask the question and let the chips fall where they may. The whole thing about everyone, we can't offend anybody because, how about the truth? How about the truth? How about not getting to the truth? That should be offensive. All right. Let's see here. Go back to the questions here. It's your show. Let me take a look about it. What about the Aurora police scandal? That's the case regarding Elijah McClain. And if most people, I don't know if most people are familiar with the Elijah McClain case, but for lack of a better term, Elijah McClain was a very introverted young man. And he was walking on Colfax Avenue. Colfax Avenue, for those who don't know, is the longest continuous street in the United States. It literally runs from the east side of Aurora and beyond, all the way through Denver, all the way up to Golden. I don't know the exact length of it, but it is the longest running street there. So Elijah McClain was walking. I think he was walking home from something. The guy played was it the violin or the cello? Forgive me if I'm wrong. To cats. Okay. Yeah. And I don't know I don't want to say he's autistic, but he was very introverted, very to himself. And the police see him walking down Colfax. Now, this particular part of Colfax, okay, not the best neighborhood. But just because you're in a bad neighborhood doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. Maybe you just can't afford to move. Maybe you like the area. Maybe your house you inherited, and that's where you're going to live or stay. So being in a bad neighborhood does not give the police reason to come and pull you over. They see Elijah McClain walking by. I think maybe someone said, oh, there was somebody that they thought was suspicious. They had some report. There's always a report of some suspicious guy, Really? Were they able to describe anybody? No. But they see Elijah McClain on the street. They make contact with him. The police, from the time they make contact with him to the time that they, for lack of a better term, put hands on him, is about 2 minutes. And he's basically like, I'm walking home. The police try to, cuff him. He doesn't want to stay. They put him in a chokehold. And if you call it anything other than a chokehold, it's a chokehold. And then paramedics arrive and they shoot the kid with ketamine, which is a tranquilizer. I always thought it was the tranquilizer they use in animals. And why the hell is a paramedic, who gives the order, the cop, the paramedic, to say, ooh, we think this guy's being a little rowdy? I mean, if you saw this kid, I don't know, what is he, $125 soaking wet? I mean, these cops, every one of them should probably be charged. The paramedics, like, who makes that call of who is going to shoot a kid up and that he gets ketamine shot into him? Needless to say, Elijah McClain dies. And as typical, it's not the police officer's fault. They're following their training, blah, 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 blah. They send it to the district attorney. They say, well, it couldn't be political because he is a Democrat. Therefore, it wasn't political, but he didn't think he could prove it, blah, blah. Typical stuff that comes up when it comes to police officers. And if anyone thinks I'm not being true, I believe all the body cam footage has already been released. And so the city hires somebody to evaluate what was wrong. And basically they come to the determination there was no basis to make contact with this kid whatsoever. And the police, now, well, they follow the procedure, blah, blah, blah. The attorney general has convened a grand jury and is looking into whether there should be charges filed. Once again, this is almost a year old, I think, maybe even longer. I have to go back and look at the exact date. But everybody gets a pass. If you're in the government and you're in the police department, 99% of the time, you're going to get a pass. And I like the police. I support the police. I support good police. And if you talk to good police officers, there's so many of them out there, but what will they tell you? They'll tell you, you know what? I've been in the police force 25, 30 years. Never had to draw my weapon once. They were always able to de-escalate the situation because they knew when you take, that firearm out of the holster like that, it takes it to a whole new level. And, situations can change rather quickly. I think we put the video up the other day of those police officers in New York City. Some guy's walking around kind of dancing, looks like in Times Square, and suddenly pulls out a firearm, starts swinging at the police officers. And these cops did amazing. I said these guys were great. They could have made a split-second decision that maybe would have changed their life forever, in the sense that maybe they get charged criminally. Maybe that guy that was swinging the gun around dies. But they exercised good judgment and restraint, and they were able to defuse the situation and arrest the guy. So the Elijah McClain case, like I said, I like police. I really do. I like good police. Get rid of the bad ones, okay? The guys, if you join the police force because you want to go kick in doors and beat up bad guys, this isn't the job. That's not the guy we're looking for. I've always said, if you ever been in the bar business, ever worked in the bar business, yeah, you want to get a bouncer that's big, that can handle himself, but you want somebody that can talk somebody down to diffuse the situation. You don't want a guy if you're hiring a bouncer. Yeah, man, I kicked as many butts. I couldn't believe I kicked. Always tough. You met that guy. He's always in a fight, always punching somebody because he's a tough guy. Why would you want that guy being out there serving the people out on the streets? Right? Sounds like a troublemaker to me. I wouldn't hire that guy. I'd be like, I'd want somebody in the police department who's like, man, I just want to serve the public. I've always felt the duty to serve, and this is what I want to do. And I love it. This is what I want to do. So, sorry, just get so fired up. Gina, looks like Gina sent us a super chat here, but I can't open it. Nope. All right. I want to read that here. This guy is paramedic. 2 channels up about it. Yeah, who gave the order to administer drugs? I mean, that's what we got to find. Yeah, Victoria says, she put herself through college as a paramedic 20 years ago. Had to get doctor's order to do meds like that. I mean, who does that? Oh, this guy's, he's resisting. Like I said, if you looked at this Elijah McClain kid, the police got it wrong in this one. I really think they got it wrong. Maybe there's something out there, I don't know, that they haven't released to the everyday people. But when you look at it, they put their hands on this kid too early. I mean, they could have just let the kid go. Not everybody's doing something wrong. And that's kind of the problem with a lot of, the police interaction these days, is they think everybody's, doing something wrong. But why do you, there's some stuff, just let it, you got to it's not worth the trouble. I think a couple of those cops may have been terminated already. Yeah. I think, City of Aurora, if you're the citizens of the City of Aurora, get your checkbooks ready, because, the city's really not paying for it. You all are. If you think the city's paying for it, you're wrong. They're going to come up with another way to take money from you to pay for the misconduct. And eventually, at some point, it's going to get so expensive that the city's going to say, man, we got to stop paying out these big $1 million judgments when our cops do something wrong. Maybe we should screen them a little better. Maybe we should train them a little better, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not so naive to say, we don't need the police. We need the police. We just need good ones that are not only going to respect the people that they work for, but they're going to respect the Constitution. Because I've said this before, nobody, I don't care what side of the political spectrum we're on, nobody gets up in the morning and says, hey, I think the government has a little too much power today. I think we're going to give a little back to the people. I think that, no prosecutor, very rarely, because there's some that will occasionally, but most people won't, most prosecutors don't get up and say, oh yeah, that search was completely unreasonable. They'll go try to justify it, right? You have a right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. Unreasonable. Well, the person that decides that is usually the judge, who usually was a prosecutor and that wants to be a judge. And so who's he going to usually rule with? That, ladies and gentlemen, is why the jury system is so important, right? When you get that jury summons, don't think, oh my gosh, I can't go to jury duty. I have a project coming up. It's going to be a day, maybe a couple, a week at the most. It is your civic obligation. And if you don't trust the government, all the more reason to go be a member on the jury and be able to make sure the system works, right? Make sure the government proves their case. And if they've proven their case, you find the defendant guilty. But it is also your oath and obligation, if the government fails to prove their case, to find the defendant not guilty. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people here talking about the ketamine stuff. I mean, yeah, it's serious stuff. And then you have, what was it, Special K, which was, I don't want to get into anything, YouTube will think that we're promoting recreational drug use here. Seriously, that's the way YouTube looks at this stuff. If you mention facts about a case, they're saying that you're somehow trying to promote it because nobody looks at anything and their damn computers don't care. Bottom line. All right. Can you believe it? Like I said, one of the things I like about the live is there's always something to talk about. And here we are already an hour and 10 minutes, and we were only supposed to go an hour. So we stayed long. All right. I want to thank everybody for watching. If you haven't done so already, please like, please subscribe, tell a friend. Join us tomorrow if you'd like to continue the conversation. Join Patreon. We'll send you the link. You can, not only that, but you can call in, and we will chat in just a moment. So please join us. Thanks for watching Crime Talk Tuesday Night Live. Man, it goes by fast. But thank you. And we'll see our Patreons in just a few moments.